See, that was quick. I'm here with you with co-host Joe DeLoach. We're back on the road and ready to answer your automotive questions. We're also discussing common car questions. So give us a call if you have a common or a question of some kind that you've had with your car, or if you want to ask the question about your car now, something that it's doing right now. Give us a call, 800-224-9090. You can also watch the show live on Facebook, listen on iHeart, or send questions to Aaron at ccautomotive.com. One of the questions that I have had in the past, I can't say I've had it within the last month or so, but a person says, my service advisor told me that my transmission fluid is discolored and they recommended that I replace the fluid. Is that something that I need to worry about? What do you think, Joe?
Absolutely. Transmission fluid maintenance is incredibly important. I'd say even as early as 50,000 miles would be a considerable time to start thinking about transmission maintenance. And transmissions today last so much longer than they used to. I mean, they really do.
They do.
I mean, it is incredible. And one of the things I think that is helping with that, along with new technologies and computer controlled and all that, is just doing maintenance on transmissions.
I think that's made a big difference too. I think there was a time to where when people would just run their transmission mainly, and correct me if you think I'm wrong on this, Joe. I think that there was a time that people were scared to have their transmission serviced.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah, there were so many stories about when you change your transmission fluid that after that you would have problems, which was true. That did happen because what was happening, if you think about it, we were pulling the pan off. We didn't know any better, and we didn't have an alternative. We would pull the pan off, and there would be roughly 5 quarts of fluid would come out. We would put a new filter in and put the pan back up and put 5 quarts back in. Well, you were mixing 5 quarts of new high detergent fluid in with old fluid.
And there's probably 5 or more quarts of old fluid in there, 5 or 7.
Well, yeah, more like, at least 7.
Yeah.
And so you were mixing that new fluid with that old fluid, and that was bringing up any debris that was floating around, that was breaking it loose, and it would hang up the valve body and do a lot of other bad stuff.
Well, then you don't have new fluid. You got half dead fluid, really. Yeah. I mean, it's half once it mixes all in there.
I remember very clearly when they first started come out with the fluid exchange, and that was because Ford transmissions had a bad shutter. At about 40, 45 miles an hour, you would give it a little slight gas, and the whole car would shutter. So they found that you could drain the torque converter and get every ounce of fluid out of the car, which was about a 3-4 hour job. And it would solve the problem if you put all new fluid back in. Well, that's when they come out with the fluid exchange machine, which has been fantastic. You hook it up, and as the vehicle was pushing its old fluid out toward the cooler, it just goes under a piston, and the new fluid goes in to take its place. So you're replacing every bit of the fluid, and there's no risk in it making something worse. Now, it's not going to solve worn out clutches on a transmission, but it's not going to get worse. As a matter of fact, it almost always extends the life of a transmission. So I agree with you. Right around 50,000 is when we start thinking about it really heavily. Some go longer, but if you look at your fluid and you get like a Kleenex or something, and you put that fluid on that Kleenex, and it's discolored. It's not like a red color on most cars. It's not like a bright red color. Then high probability you're at the point to where you need to have it done. And heat is what affects transmission fluid.
It breaks it down badly.
Yeah. When it gets hot, you can look at a chart, and when you look at that chart and you see that heat, boom, the fluid life drops way down. And, of course, it's got to make it last longer. You got to figure you got all those fast-moving parts. They have to produce some metal. So when the metal gets in there, you're going to have more wear. You're going to have more metal. Then it's not going to lubricate more. It's going to actually act like sandpaper. Next thing you know, boom, you got transmission issues. So I agree with you. I think one of the reasons transmissions last so much longer is because of the maintenance that's being done on them now. People's aware that that's something that if they have done, it'll make it last longer. Okay, we'll cover this one real quick. Tire rotation. How often would you recommend tire rotation?
Typically we say on a conventional oil change, you're doing it about every 3,000, maybe to 5,000 miles on a conventional oil change. So I would recommend at least every other oil change on
Yeah.
that.
On
If
most
you're doing the synthetic intervals that maybe is a 7,500 interval, I'd say every oil change you probably need to do it.
And of course, you do run into some cars that you can't rotate because the rear tires are different size than the front tires. But when you can, it will definitely extend the life of your tires if you keep them rotated.
Absolutely, it's a definitely an investment in the cost of costly tires.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, we're going to lay the tech tip quiz back on the table, and it is. William was driving from Bakersfield, California to watch the Super Bowl game. They were carrying lots of snacks. When they stopped for a nice picnic, they found that someone had opened their chips. How could this happen? If you know the answer, give us a call. And I'll go ahead and throw something out there that the same thing would have happened if they were in the Blue Ridge Mountains.
You just said the M word. You might give it away.
Yeah, that is true. I might have messed up. Okay.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
you had a dry week last week. Nobody got it, so you got to give them a
nobody
little
got
bone.
it. Okay. So if someone knows the answer to the Tech Tip quiz, give us a call. If you have a question about your car, truck, or SUV, you give us a call because we are here to
3
answer
minute
those
stations, 3 minutes to your next Fox News.
and we will be right back after these messages. Okay, I told you we'd be right back. Thank you for waiting. I'm here with automotive expert Joe DeLoach. We are back on the road, ready to answer your automotive questions and discuss common car questions. We got a tech tip quiz laying on the table also.
Yeah, they might have a little cheat though.
Yeah, I might have threw a little too
you
much out there.
did. That was a
Yeah.
big bone to throw.
Yeah, well, we'll
we'll
find
see.
out. We'll find out soon. Give us a call, 800-224-9090. You can also watch us live on Facebook, listen on iHeart, or send your question to Aaron at ccautoShow.com. You ready to go to the calls?
Let's do it.
Let's find out who was next. I'm going to go here. I believe that would be Eric. Eric, welcome to the CNC Auto Show, and what can we help you with?
Well, I wanted to give a shot at the tech tip quiz.
Oh, Eric, you know we have to put you on stage, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, be still. All right, and quit fidgeting. All right. All right, Eric, I'm going to read the question real quick. William was driving from Bakersfield, California to watch the Super Bowl game. They were carrying lots of snacks when they stopped for a nice picnic. They found that someone had opened their chips. How could this happen? And if you know the answer, lay it out there. Eric, all eyes are on you. The judges are ready. They got their pens in their hands because they want to judge whether you did answer it or did not. It's a great big room full of people waiting on pins and needles for your answer. What is it?
There's a change in differential pressure when you're driving through the mountains that could cause a bag to hyperinflate and burst open.
What made the bag come open?
It hyperinflated, and there's a differential shift in pressure when you drive, through the mountains.
What, did the bag inflate?
I believe so, and caused it to burst open.
Well, in a way, yeah. And you're right. Nobody really opened the chips. When they
Right,
took a scenic tour through the mountains so that they could have a picnic there, the air inside the bags, and that air was put in the bags closer to sea level. And the altitude went up, and the pressure in the bag stayed the same. But the atmospheric pressure outside the bag dropped, so it looks like the bag is inflating. And when you keep going, they'll just pop. Now, they'll usually pop at 4,000 to 5,000 feet, and so they were closer to 8,000 feet. And but actually, they don't know exactly when they popped. They thought they heard a funny noise out there. And I'm going to mention that Mason here, he is the one that gave the idea for that, because from what I understand, when he was younger, his family would go to the mountains, and they would wait for the bags to pop. So
Yeah.
I thought that was good. And actually, Eric, you're good too, because you got the answer. You're now a winner. Oh, listen to it. Listen to it. And that was the judges, Eric. That wasn't even the normal people. They're going crazy in there. And you are the winner. So you will receive a coffee mug that you can have. And as you're sitting there, you can have a smug look on your face because it'll say official Tech Tip Quiz winner as you're talking to everybody. And you can just,
All right.
just go like that. And you couldn't see me do
Hey,
that. But it was a smirk. All right, go ahead.
Hey, I also had a question with the fluid exchange
Yes.
on the transmissions. What about the filter? I mean, I know you leave.
Oh,
you
I
never
love that
break
question.
the pins loose, but-
Yeah, great question. Here's what happened. Probably it was a good while back. Ford Motor Company did a study, and they found that even after 100,000 miles, that filter was only 10% restricted. Now, that's on a transmission that's been taken care of. And plus, I'm going to tell you that once you break that seal on that transmission pan, it is hard to get the factory seal back. They'll tend to leak. And adding to that, since many manufacturers have found out that the filter does not need to be replaced, they only put a screen in there anyway. So in short, if your filter needs to be replaced, you got a lot more problems than fluid or a filter is going to solve anyway, because you got enough debris to clog that thing up. So no, I would not remove the pan unless it's leaking, and or you have to change a part in there like a shift solenoid. And from time to time you do. There's electronic parts inside the transmission that fail at times, and you have to go in there. In those cases, I would take the transmission pan off. But other than that, if it's just a normal routine maintenance, even at 100,000 miles, actually even at 125 or more, I would not take the pan off. So
Okay, that makes sense.
yeah, that was a great question, because this machine is actually, what's good about it is it's getting all of the fluid out of the transmission. What's in the torque converter comes out, what's in the moving part, around the moving parts of the transmission, and what's in the pan all comes out of there. And then you're going in with new fluid, so you don't take that chance of debris breaking loose from inside the fluid and hanging something up, because it's just you got all new fluid. And if you've had this, I kind of go too far on this because I get excited when I talk about transmission fluid. If you was to take old transmission, or even transmission that's even a little bit discolored, and put it between your fingers and kind of rub it, you'll feel heat build up pretty quick. You take new fluid and put it between your fingers, you rub it together, and it's very slick, and it almost feels cool. It has a cooling effect when you do it. So new fluid, in my mind, it has to make the transmission last longer. If you got something that's slicker and cooler and all of that, it's got to help the moving parts to last longer. So yeah, I would say that don't worry about the filter unless you're having to pull it off for other reasons, but keep that fluid changed, and you can add years and many, many miles to the life of a transmission.
Yeah, I would agree with what you said too about creating a leak too, because those factory gaskets are usually sealed so well.
Oh yeah,
and really some of the aftermarket gaskets, you get one of those like cork ones or those flimsy rubber, they just don't do as good of a job. And of course, you can get the replacement factory gasket again, but a lot of times those things are expensive.
Mm-hmm. And Eric, I would go ahead and I will go ahead and mention this while you're talking about transmission fluid and all that. A lot of people think that they quit putting dipsticks on cars because they want it to cost people more money if they go somewhere and have it done. But the theory is on transmission fluid, if it's not leaking, it's not going to be low. A car don't use transmission fluid. So you can go 200,000 miles, and if it's not leaking, it's going to have the same amount of fluid that it had from the factory. But what was happening is people would check their fluid with it a little bit with the engine cold, and they'd fill it up to the high mark, and then when it gets hot, that fluid, transmission fluid, expands pretty good. So what would happen is it would expand and get up to the area of the moving parts. Then those moving parts would move around inside the transmission fluid. That would create foam, and foam, of course, you have areas of no lubrication at all, because when the foam goes through there. So people were burning up their transmission because they were adding too much fluid. And then, of course, some people were adding the wrong fluid, because the correct transmission fluid is very, very important, because some fluids have certain additives in them that they have to work properly. So they didn't put that in there because you don't have to touch your transmission fluid unless as far as checking it, unless you have a problem, have a leak or something like that. Or so we do a refill procedure on some cars because they've been in an accident and it lost transmission fluid in an accident, so we have to refill it. But other than that, unless it's leaking, you don't have to do it. But Eric, great questions. Congratulations on being the newest Tech Tip Quiz winner.
All right. I enjoy your show. Really
Thank you.
appreciate you.
Thanks for
Well, we
calling in.
appreciate the call. Okay, here we go. I'm here with Joe DeLoach, and we are having a great time. I hope that you are. We will return shortly and ready to answer your automotive questions. Just dial 800-224-9090, or you can dial 706-863-5800. We'll be right back.
Thank you.
Oh, we're here with Joe DeLoach, and we're discussing. I had a cough drop in my mouth. I'll go ahead and tell you. We're kind of informal here. We have a good time, and even during the breaks, we have a good time because we hear about a lot of. I try to keep track of our producer Mason on what he's done during the week, and we just have a good time. I'll put it that way. Okay. Want you to give us a call, and that number, 800-224-9090, and we are here to answer your automotive question. This is a great opportunity for everyone because Joe DeLoach is he is awesome. He's an awesome technician. He has worked in many shops, managing shops, also been an automotive instructor, so he is able to answer all sorts of questions. And he is here at your disposal today. He can answer those questions, so give us a call. All right, we're talking about common automotive questions that we get, and one that I get from time to time has to do with a person wondering about their timing belt. They say, Aaron, when do I replace a timing belt? Do you get that question from time to time, Joe?
We do, and one of the things that's important too, obviously they're crucially important because most engines these days are interference engines, which means if the timing belt is to break, internal engine parts usually have a collision, and it's bad. Mm-hmm. Usually, catastrophic, or at least a head having to be replaced or something of that nature. But
define bad.
Bad.
All life as we know it explodes at the speed of light.
Yeah, it's nothing you can limp home if it breaks. It's you are where it broke.
And interference means that that at one point in time the piston and the valve would occupy the same space, but it's the timing belt that keeps them timed. And if the belt breaks, they occupy that space at the same time.
Yeah, they have a little collision going on there. But no, the maintenance of that is so important, because you can go from. I know timing belt repairs are expensive. Some of them are around $1,000. Some are more than that, unfortunately. But, you're talking a $5,000 to $7,000 engine easily if you didn't do that. So it's definitely in your favor to do it. And most intervals I would see are usually around 100,000 miles. Some are early at 60, and some are as high as 120. I've seen. But
here's something I see, Joe, and see if you've run into this before yourself. Okay, someone buys a car new or they buy a car 30, 40, 50,000 miles. They love the car, been a fantastic car. They're looking through the owner's manual. They're doing everything it says. Then it comes across 120,000 whenever it says, and they shoot right on down there. They say, I love this car. I want it to last a long time. I'm going to replace the timing belt. They do it. They do the water pump with it. Everything's done perfect. It's great. Okay, they keep the car longer, and over a period of time, they start saying, well, this car's getting a little old. I'm not going to worry about it as much. But it provides great transportation. It does good, so I enjoy driving it, so I'm going to keep driving it. Next thing you know, they have 200,000 miles on it. All right, now they're not looking at the owner's manual. They're not caring about it, and then they're riding down the road, timing belt breaks. They took a vehicle that could have lasted another 3, 4, 5 years or another 50,000 miles or more, and it's pretty much unrepairable now because you're not going to put an engine in the car in most cases. Not every, some people do, but you're not going to want to spend that amount of money, $4,000 or $5,000 on an engine on a car that's got 200,000 miles on it. So you pretty much totaled the car, whereas you could have spent $1,000 and had that same car, and with the price of used cars, it still would have had a lot of value. So I've seen that happen so many times.
Another thing to consider too with timing belts, and I don't know your exact opinion on this, but I see cars. Say you got a Miata, you had one for a while, didn't you?
I did.
Yeah.
I love that car.
And it had a timing belt. Well, say
Yeah.
you got a Sunday driver Miata that you put 2,000 or 3,000 miles a year on, maybe.
Yeah.
You may never get to the mileage marker, but that belt is rubber and it
Yeah.
does break down over time. I would say probably every 10 years, probably sooner
Exactly.
than that, but at least every 10
I
years.
I normally tell people 10 years also.
Yeah.
If they,
You know,
even though they don't have the miles, because they just like a tire. And you think about it, what's tires, belts, timing belts, all of these other things. What do they all have in common?
Rubber.
Yeah, they're made of rubber. They go bad and they get cracked. And the big thing on a timing belt is the consequences when they go bad.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so you definitely want to go in there and have that have the timing belt replaced. Now, talk to your service advisor and find out if your car has a timing belt or a timing chain. If it has a chain, if you keep your oil changed on a regular basis, high probability you'll never have to worry about a chain. But if you have a belt, then I would know when it was changed last or when it's due to be changed. Okay, ready to go to calls?
Let's do it.
We're going to head right on over there to Tony. Tony, welcome to the CNC Auto Show.
Good morning, guys.
Yes, sir.
First, let me say I've already done the boo-boo of my transmission, I guess.
Uh-huh.
I just recently dropped it and did the fluid change, what have you, gasket, and the filter inside. Let me back up a minute. It's a 2003 GMC Sonoma 4x4 pickup.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome little truck, 4.3 liter. But the problem I'm having with it, I'm driving down the road, it's driving just fine. I go to pass a vehicle, pass a car, truck, what have you. Then it starts to stall down on it, and then it's just crying to get back home, barely getting back home. And I don't know if it's the catalytic converter has clogged up on it over the years, or that was the reason that I changed out the transmission fluid and what have you. I've always done all my maintenance on my vehicles since, I guess, about 1970.
Mm-hmm.
And these newer vehicles, of course, they're more automated than the computer at home.
Mm-hmm.
I am just at a loss of what's going on with my truck now.
Now, once it gets where it won't go, does it continue not to go? In other words, all the way home, you don't have any power after that?
Yeah, all the way home. Get up next morning, crank it up, runs just fine until I do the same thing.
You know, so you're saying, does it more or less bog when you do that? Like or is it's not the RPMs aren't getting up high, like the transmission slipping or anything like that, is it?
No, it doesn't seem like it's a transmission. That's where the loss for me is.
Feels like you got a big old trailer hook behind you way more than you should, or something like that, just dragging a stump or an anchor.
Yeah. Yep, that's good information right there.
Yeah, dragging an anchor. There we go. There's a couple of things that you did mention. Obviously, a catalytic converter. If you can't breathe, you can't. You couldn't run a mile. So your engine has to breathe as well. And if your catalytic converter is restricted, that could absolutely make it bog. And they tend to do it more when they get hot. So that's also a kind of a thing that you're in the line. But another thing is you couldn't run a mile if you were thirsty either. So low fuel pressure can cause a similar symptom like that of a bog and a hesitation and low power. Those are the two things that come to mind real quickly for me. I don't know about what you got, Aaron.
About the same thing. You have to have, a restriction of air coming in. You have to have the air coming in. You have to be able to let the air out. So anything to do with a restriction in the air filter box, but usually that would be constant. It would do it from the time you crank up until the time you're out. Exhaust, like you mentioned, it tends to be more, get worse as the engine gets hot. Fuel pressure, that can do it pretty much any time. I believe I would recommend, instead of trying to take a chance on spending money on parts you don't need, you may be ahead to go ahead and have some diagnostic tests run on that. And a good technician can go in and check the fuel pressure and tell you whether it's fuel pressure issue. He can run an exhaust back pressure test and tell you whether the catalytic converter is clogged up, and look at readings on the computer and tell what's going on. So that's the route I would recommend going.
Right. Many moons ago, I had an AMC Concord wagon. Loved that car, and I wish they still had them today. 2.8 liter. It did the same thing on me, and it turned out it was the catalytic converter.
Yeah.
I cut the pipe out, or cut the converter out, dropped it, put a piece of pipe in. I've actually purchased the pipe already, and I was getting ready to do just that, but I think I'm getting ready to do what you just recommended. Just get a back pressure test check on it, and
okay.
And go from there.
The fuel gauge you'll need, Tony, I really appreciate the call. And we'll see you next hour on CNC Auto Show. Oh, we are back with you on the road. We have host Joe, co-host Joe DeLoach here with us, and I mentioned before that Joe's an awesome technician. He manages CNC Automotive stores in Aiken, South Carolina, and it's also been helping with the store in Columbia a great deal, along with others. There's a lot of, like Amanda spends a lot of time there. John Ryan, all of them spend a lot of time helping there. And really a beautiful place there. So in short, though, Joe knows his stuff, and today's he's at your disposal. He's here to help share some information on ways to make your car safer, to make it more dependable, make it last longer for less money and less hassle. And if you want to take advantage of Joe's knowledge, all you have to do is dial 800-224-9090, or you can dial 706-863-5800. That's on any Saturday morning, 8:05 to 10 Eastern time. You can listen right here, or you can listen on iHeart. You can watch us live on Facebook. You can send a question to Aaron@ccautoshow.com. And so buckle up. We're going to ride. Ready to go to the caller show?
Let's do it.
All right, here we go. All right, we will start with Steve. Hey, Steve, welcome to the CNC Auto Show. What can we help you with today?
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thanks for calling.
It's ironic that you would talk about transmissions earlier because I'm having a rash of bad luck with a few of my vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
But the transmission I have to replace, I waited too long. But where I am going with this is I was doing my front brakes on my 2015 Chevy 2500 truck,
Mm-hmm.
and I left the key on as we were turning the wheel back and forth so I could replace the calipers and get a little torque on there a little better. And when I went to start the car, start the truck up, it was dead. So I pulled the old 2004 Crown Vic over, and here's where we're going with the question. I jump-started, my wife got in the Crown Vic, and we jump-started the truck up, and as she was revving the motor up, she went a little crazy, and she blew a spark plug and the coil right out of the manifold on top. And I'm a do-it-yourselfer, like I said, but my question now is, I think I can probably rethread that spark plug in that coil, and how hard is that to do, and is there a kit I can buy locally, or should I let the professionals do it?
Well, it sounds like you're pretty handy. I'm going to start with saying that. If you're already doing your own brakes and that sort of thing. It is fairly common for those 4.6 liter Fords to hit the eject button on a spark plug,
Yeah.
unfortunately. It's random. Sometimes it'll only do one. We've had a customer who's had a truck that's done 3 or 4. It just, no rhyme or reason to it. But they do sell a kit to repair those threads. You won't be able to just rethread it and put the spark plug back in, a new spark plug, and typically a coil, because those get broken in the process too. But you would have to
Right, it did.
put a thread insert in there. They make some pretty good kits to do them, and if you're pretty handy and read they come with good instructions. I feel like it's something you could probably take care of. Just make sure you follow those instructions to the T.
Yeah, it's something just take your time on. I normally like to, after it's done, do you take any precautions on trying to make sure no metal gets down inside the engine?
You do when you're tapping it. You can put a little grease on the tap to kind of hopefully it sticks to the
great
tap.
idea. Yeah.
And then also, get you some compressed air and clean everything off before you start. And
Exactly.
through it, blow it out real good.
And then after you do it, try to blow some of it out.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just try to
Yeah, I
make sure
thought
no
about a
metal
little
gets down
shop
inside
vac
that
or
cylinder.
something.
And
Yeah.
and plan to take your time. Don't try to do it fast. But yeah, it's something you can do because you want it to be nice and straight and all of that.
And really, we've had
Well, that
good-
little tube,
Mm-hmm.
that little tube that goes down there looks like it's about 6 inches before you get to the spark plug. So it looks to me like it's going to be a challenge just to do all that. But I'm sure the tap or the die will be sufficient enough to get down that far.
They are. Well, they have a standard 3/8 drive where you can put an extension in it to use it on a hand ratchet, so you can just put it on like you would a socket. It's fairly easy, like Aaron said. Just take your time, make sure you do it nice and straight, and get it done well. And we've had good luck with them.
But any of the local parts, is that a factory thing I need
O'Reilly
to
Auto
pick up, or-
Parts does sell that kit.
Yeah.
And you can just go up there and they'll know what you're talking about. Just go to O'Reilly Auto Parts, and of course the people there
Those
at
are
the
my
counter
boys.
have a lot of experience on stuff, and just let them know the part that you need, and they'll be able to let you know the one that you need for your vehicle.
Sounds great.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
Yep. Thanks for
Good
calling
luck.
in.
I hope
Good
you have
weekend.
great luck from here on out. We're gonna wish that for you.
There's better days ahead.
That's it.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep.
Thank you, Steve. Okay. We will I tell you what, let's go to the next caller. We got a lot of calls.
We got some time. Let's do
We
it.
got some other stuff. Let's go ahead and go. Let's go to Billy. Hey, Billy, welcome to the CNC Auto Show. What can we help with?
You guys talking about timing belts this morning. I'm wondering if you have a timing belt, can you change it to a timing chain?
Not very easily. You probably would be ahead to buy another car. So no.
Okay, well, while you're doing the timing belt, should you also check out your serpentine belt and make sure it's not worn down too? Also.
Oh, absolutely. Matter of
Great
fact,
point.
if it's not fairly new, I would go ahead and do it at the same time. Oh, and that gives us a chance to mention this too, because most people that's had a timing belt find this out. The service advisor or technician normally, along with just a timing belt, they normally recommend doing a water pump. And the reason they do that is your timing belt is normally, the interval is usually between 90 and 110, 120,000 miles. So if you replace, if you don't do the water pump, then it wouldn't be uncommon to hit 130, 140,000 miles. Boom, water pump goes out. So you got to take timing belt back off. Whereas if you would have just done the water pump, matter of fact, they come in a kit, timing belt, water pump, pulleys.
A lot of the
tensioner.
camshaft seals too. A lot of
Yeah,
times.
camshaft seals. Any of that stuff that might need to be replaced in the next 100,000 miles, you want to go ahead and do it.
Yeah, it's really free labor because you're pretty much already paying the labor
Yeah.
to do the timing belt. You know, most of it's just incurring
Right.
additional parts costs to do the job 100% perfect.
Yeah. Now, I will say that it's not uncommon for us if we see that it's the first time the timing belt's been replaced and we don't have any reason to think it's leaking. A lot of times we won't do the cam and crank seals
No,
because they do normally last another 100,000 miles. But
Right.
if there's
Just
any
go ahead.
leakage, I do it. But the water pump won't. It's probably going to go out well before it's due for the next timing belt.
Right. Well, just as something's lubricating the timing chain, is there something lubricating that timing belt also?
No, and here a lot of people think a timing belt is only on smaller cars like a Honda or something like that. But actually, timing belts are used on some very high-end vehicles. Name one, Lexus.
Yeah, some of the Lexus do. Like
Yeah.
the older, a little bit older Toyota Tundras used them. The Lexus. Ford.
Yeah, so it's some very high-end cars, and one of the reasons they do it is because, of course, it's less expensive to build, but also the biggest thing is it's lighter. You got less components,
Less
and
rotating mass.
yeah, and actually, if it's maintained properly, it lasts many, many, many years. You don't have any problem with it. That's the only thing with timing belts. If someone forgets one, that's when it can be catastrophic. You can turn a beautiful engine that's running very smooth into a boat anchor within seconds.
Fast.
Yeah, really fast.
What year did they actually go to timing belts instead of timing chains approximately? Because I know they still use chains.
Well, they still use chains. They still use belts.
I mean, some of the early cars had belts. I mean, really.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Cars way back, as far back as I remember, had belts, and actually, if anything, they've started using more chains now than belts.
Yeah, there was a time period, but
on small engines.
yeah,
But
absolutely.
it used to be that a belt would only be used. It would only be used on a small engine. Now you see them on large engine. But that's a great question, Billy. Thank you.
Right. Well, that 5.3 liter V6 that I got that the timing belt broke on, it keeps my 16-foot Batto from going upstream.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Billy. Appreciate the call. We'll be right back after this.
John Harris Body Shop.
Right, we are back. That was a pretty quick pit stop. I feel
We're back
better.
already. Yep.
I'm Eric Clemens here with Joe DeLoach, and we are here to answer your automotive questions. We also are discussing common car questions that you may have, or we've been asked over the years, because Joe's been in this business a long time, managed stores, worked in automotive instructor at automotive technology schools. So with all that, we get asked a lot of questions. So we kind of put a list together of different ones that we've been asked over the years, and we're laying them out there. If you want to ask a question about your car, just dial 800-224-9090. You can also watch us live on Facebook or listen on iHeart. Ready to go, calls?
Let's do it.
All right, we're going to do it, Joe. And we will go to Bobby. Bobby, welcome to the CNC Auto Show.
Good morning.
Morning.
Yes, sir. What can
Enjoy
we help you with today?
Quick, simple, easy question, probably a hard task. 97 Dodge Dakota oil pan gasket. Do I have to pull the motor up, or can I sneak it in without jacking the motor up?
Two-wheel drive?
V6 two-wheel, yeah.
Two-wheel drive.
Some of those did have a cross
frame
member
cross member underneath it.
I'm scratching
I'm sorry.
my back on that one. Now, I'm trying to remember the last one of those I might would have done.
It's a V6. It's got a frame cross member underneath the pan, looks like about an inch away from it.
Just from memory, I don't think that one comes out with you. If I'm not mistaken, there's two routes you can go. One, to try to jack the engine up enough to give you room to do that, or pull the engine out and do it, which
Oh,
by the time you fight
well-
all the other stuff, you may come out ahead to pull the engine out on that one. Now, I may be wrong, but I think that one sits very, very close to the cross member, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right?
Yeah, it looks
It's right
like it's
up
too
on it.
close for comfort to,
Yeah.
to actually really sneak that gasket on there correctly. It looks like that would be the problem. So
Exactly.
That's what I figured.
Yeah.
Appreciate your answer in your show.
Well, I
No,
wish
don't
I would've had a
appreciate your
better
answer,
one
but I
for
do
you.
Appreciate Y'all have a good day. Thanks.
Hey,
Thank you, you too.
Thank you. Okay, the number to call is 706-863-5800 or 800-224-9090. And let's go over to the next caller. Welcome to the CNC Auto Show, and what can we help you with?
This is Tom Palmer. How you?
I am doing very well. How are you doing today?
Got a question.
Let's hear it.
I got a 08 Tahoe 5.36 engine. I got high oil pressure. Just started on my gauge, and I was looking through my manual here. Is a VLOM oil pressure sensor and an oil filter. You have to remove the cover, it says, of electrical, and disconnect that sensor. And but the oil pressure usually runs normally at 2,000 RPMs, about 45 pounds.
Yes, sir.
I turn the ignition switch on, and it runs 45 pounds without the engine running, and then crank the engine up. It deadheads.
Pegs the gauge out.
Deadhead.
We have seen a pretty bad run of those oil pressure centers on those going bad. That there's just a little diaphragm in there. Sometimes they'll bust. Sometimes they just don't. Sometimes they actually may be leaking through the connector. You don't realize that either, and it's kind of just shorting out the electrical connector as well.
On top of the oil filter there, and into the little filter.
Well, that one's not there. This one is all the way on the back of the engine, between the intake manifold and the firewall. And if you actually read the service procedure on there, it says to remove the intake manifold. But I'm going to tell you from experience, if you got a double jointed wrist and a couple of swivels, you can get it out without pulling the intake manifold. But it's back there for sure.
Yeah. I've got a good friend of mine that's in Atlanta that's got business like y'all got.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
Yeah, I was just thinking about. I've used that lubricant, Lucas Oil. I believe in that. Coats the journals and everything. About 70% of all engines, internal combustion engines, it wears when you first crank it up. I wish automotive people would put a device to prelude that engine before you even turn it over. I know at Caterpillar we did it.
Yeah.
But
with that sending unit, I believe what we would normally do if we suspect either high or low oil pressure is we would do a manual oil pressure test. That one's a little bit more difficult to do, a manual oil pressure test, because, like Joe mentioned, it's very difficult to get to. But I will put it this way: high oil pressure would be very, very unusual. A bad sending unit would be very likely. A gauge, every now and then you do run into a bad gauge.
Sweeping the gauge is important,
but you
too.
can spend a lot of money on diagnostics, or you can just say, well, I'm going to try a sending unit. And that's probably what I would do, is instead of you spending $100 or more on diagnosing the car, I would just put a new sending unit in there.
That's what I was thinking.
And another little trivial thing about those, there's a little screen under that sending unit. It is actually the filter for the cylinder deactivation on that. That VLO, I think VLOM is the abbreviation for it.
Yeah.
But I would recommend changing that little filter as well, too. They're only a couple of dollars. Usually they don't have any debris on them, but every now and then you'll see one that has a couple of pieces of metal on it or something like that. And while you're in there, it's definitely a good maintenance item to do with it.
Well, that high oil pressure, done it on the push rods, it turns it into mechanical, doesn't it?
Hey, Tom, I'm going to put you on hold just for a second.
Yeah.
We'll be right back after this. I told you we'd be right back, and thank you for waiting. I'm here with automotive expert Joe Deloach. We are back on the road ready to answer your automotive questions and discuss common car questions. Number 800-224-9090 or 706-863-5800 is the number that you can call to ask your automotive questions and to learn more about your car. It's a proven fact that people that listen to this show have better success with their vehicle maintenance.
I believe it.
There was a big study done. That's right. Okay, watch us live on Facebook, listen on iHeart, or send your question in to Aaron at ccautoshow.com. We were talking with Tom. Hey, Tom, we were talking about your sending unit that you had. And
I usually bring in my car over Wrightsburg. Y'all done quite a bit of stuff over the years for me. And Monday and Tuesday, you think you can do the throttle body and replace that little deal there and change oil?
yeah,
that works.
now you're gonna find that sending unit is not gonna be you're gonna want them to give you an estimate on that, because that's not like an average sending unit. It's very inexpensive, but you replace that sending unit, it's more involved. So definitely, just like I recommend everyone do when they take their car somewhere. You want to go in and say, hey, I want to, this is what I need, and can you get me an estimate before you do it? That way you know. So,
always.
but we would love to. Tom, I'm going to ask you something, what your thoughts are on this. Our producer, and I've mentioned this before, what he does, he gets, what do you call those, Joe, a happy box?
That's what I joked and called it. I don't know.
All right, there's a subscription box. In other words, he pays so much money, and they send him surprise gifts. Now, I've mentioned this one before, but I'm holding it in my hand, is his emergency valve stem. So that if he's riding down the road and his valve stem blows out, he's got one. Now, I think he's supposed to keep it in his pocket at all times in case he's driving a different car. Now, my question to you, Tom, how often do you have a valve stem blowout?
I've never had one.
I hadn't either. Now, here's the other question. The other item that he received was a zero gravity pin, so that if he's in space, it still writes even though there's zero gravity. Tom, how often do you think you would need that pin?
I don't believe I need one, but it has to work off some kind of pressure if it's zero gravity. It's something got to push.
What I was wondering also is if you were pushed off the top of a huge building and you wanted to write a note on the way down.
It would work for that. That's a great idea. Mason.
Yeah. So
is that why you got that box?
Yeah.
So,
he's going to test it.
We're going to learn more about the items that come in his happy box as we go. And Tom, what you're talking about as far as the items on having your car checked out, we're very happy to do that, and we really appreciate the call too.
I've always used you guys. You ought to be knowing.
If I had an emergency valve stem, I would give it to you. How's that? All right.
Sounds like.
Hey, have a great day.
Every Saturday. Have a good one.
Thank you, and you do the same. And the number to call.
I'll see you next week.
Oh, beautiful.
I'll be over next week.
That'll work.
See you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, the number to call is 706-863-5800, or you can call 800-224-9090. We do some kind of weird things here. We pretty much just say whatever's on our mind as we go.
Aaron's about to tell you what it's on his mind, apparently. No.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm going to throw a really quick tech tip quiz out there. And remember, this is one of the very few times, matter of fact, the only time I remember that I'm doing a tech tip quiz off the cuff.
Just like that.
I jotted down a quick note of one. Okay, the fire chief's car. He had a Crown Vic. Fire chief's car. There was a call, and he went to the call. There was a burning building, and he seen what was going on. The time he pulled, and in this car that he had, let me mention this part. He had a running hot problem at slow speeds. And he had it for for months and months everybody'd been looking at it, trying to find out what's wrong. Nobody knew what was wrong. So he went, he pulled into this burning building, and he pulled up close because he seen where somebody was trying to throw a dog out of the second floor. So he ran up there to the front of the car. He looked up there, he caught the dog, and he found out what was wrong with his car. He knew what was wrong with his Crown Vic. So if you know the answer to today's Tech Tip quiz, you give us a call, and I will write it down formally next time.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is a Tech Tip quiz from the cuff.
Yeah, that is. It don't happen often. Yeah, very, very rare that comes up. Okay, we're going to go ahead and cover some of our other questions. We talked about this a little bit before. Spark plugs. How does somebody know when it's time to change their spark plugs, Joe?
Well, most manufacturers give a maintenance interval for that as well. And of course, if you have a problem, if you had a misfire or something like that, sometimes you may have to address things before that time frame. But typically on a good running vehicle, most stuff uses a platinum or an iridium spark plug these days. And most of them have an interval of 90 to similar to that timing belt interval, really, 90 to 105 or, sometimes 120,000 miles.
One way they can get, and I'll mention this part first. This has always amazed me, and I've mentioned this before. A person goes to the store and they buy a watch, and just, I got a Fitbit. I wear a Fitbit watch, and you pull the little paper out. You read all the directions on all the stuff it'll do. I mean, it'll read heart rate and all that, and been through it. But the book is probably, it's not a real thick book, but it's probably pretty good. But I spent the time to do that. Matter of fact, I spent a good hour to know everything that this thing will do because I like it. All right. So what's somebody do when they go out and buy an $80,000 vehicle?
Well, one of the things I would say is always to have a trusted shop.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that we try to do is, advise people of upcoming issues and what you're due. And, we don't want to surprise them at 100,000 miles and say, you need a timing belt and spark plugs. We want to tell them at 90 that you need it in 10,000 miles.
But that's what's crazy. You buy a $200 watch and you sit there and read all the directions. You buy an $80,000 vehicle, you never even open the book.
You put gas in it.
Yeah, you put gas in it. So all of those little cubby holes that's in there and all of those little neat tricks that it does all the time, you don't even know it.
No.
You have no idea. And then once you've had the car 5 years, you find out, wow, I didn't know it would do that. So every now and then people need to get their butts out. But the reason I said all that is one of the best times to tell when the spark plugs need to be replaced is the owner's manual. Service advisor can tell you, and that's great. But glance at that owner's manual schedule and every now and then and say, wow, this car needs a timing belt at 90. It's going to need spark plugs at 100. And it don't hurt to go ahead and set it up your phone. If you know you're driving 15,000 miles a year, go ahead and set it up in your phone for, 6 years or whatever it is, to say, well, this is a reminder that I got a timing belt, and check it then. Now, check it in between them, but that's just a backup reminder. Ready to go to calls?
Let's do it.
All right, here we go. Ken. Hey, Ken, welcome to the Ken, welcome to the CNC Auto Show. And the producer, Mason, is going to kill me because I answered the phone and we only have a minute. So.
Oh, I got an answer for your off-the-cuff tech tip quiz.
Oh, my goodness. I tell you what.
He's brave.
We're gonna let that be a big teaser for what's to come for the next segment. So let's go ahead and put them on stage, Mason. Okay, Ken, you're on stage, and you will tell us how he was able to diagnose this problem that nobody could find for all this time by just pulling up and catching a dog. So I look forward to your answer, and we'll be right back after these messages. I'm sitting here with co-host Joe DeLoach, and we're answering automotive questions. We also discussing common car questions, and we want you to join us. Just dial 800-224-9090. You can also listen right here, or you can listen on iHeart. You can also watch us live on Facebook. We are talking to Ken, and we're going to go back to Ken. Ken, welcome back to the CNC Auto Show. And from what I understand, you may have an answer to our Tech Tip quiz.
Yes.
Ken, did we put you on stage a minute ago?
We did.
I think you did.
Hey,
I'm up there.
You know, I had a deal to where our Blue, the guy that does the trumpet, he does not like that when he does not get to play right before then. So we're gonna put you back on stage. Okay, Blue, you can go over there and sit down now. He takes a break. He's just sitting there ready anytime somebody comes up on stage. Okay, and of course the question was Fire Chief's car had a running hot problem for about a year. He'd been trying to find out what in the world is wrong with it. He pulled up to a burning building, right at it, and jumped out, caught a dog from the second floor. And I don't know how big the dog was, but either way, he caught it. I hope it wasn't like a major big dog or something, because it would have been kind of hard. But anyway, he also diagnosed the car when he caught the dog. Ken, all eyes are on you. What is the answer to today's Tech Tip quiz?
Well, it was a very unusual problem. You don't find many like that, but his radiator fan was on backwards because he noted smoke was being pushed out of the radiator than from being pulled through it.
Ken, I just got one question on that. How did you know it? How did
I remember hearing about that a long time ago somewhere. I forgot where, though.
Well, it might have been me. I thought of an old tech tip that I used about 5 years ago. And I said, I thought that was pretty good. I didn't think, I don't know if
It was a good one.
yeah, that worked out good. But you are absolutely right. And that used to happen more often than it happens now. Because, oh, wow. Well, I forgot to do that.
Very much.
Yeah. Yeah, you getting out of here without that applause would be like dropping your very last M&M that you had in the bag. It would be.
Man.
Has that ever happened to you, Ken? You drop your last M&M?
Oh, I suppose so.
Yeah. But yeah, that's but that used to happen more often because the fans used to come with just two wires, and you used to have to cut the connector off. And sometimes those wires were either the wrong color or people would just connect them the wrong way. And when they were diagnosing the car, it was sitting still, and all they'd know was the fan would come on. They said, yeah, the cooling fan's working. They didn't realize it was working the wrong way. And what would happen is if you start going down the road and you're moving, say, 10 miles an hour, and actually the fan's pushing 10 miles an hour, you kind of neutralizing everything, so you don't have any flow across the radiator or the condenser, and so the engine runs hot. And Ken, it was kind of amazing that you were able to grab that one. So
Yeah, I picked up on that one real quick.
Ken, listen to him, Ken. That's all for you, man. Hey, we appreciate the call. Hey, stay online. They'll get some information. You'll get one of those
Okay, thanks a lot.
very famous coffee mugs. We thank you. Okay, the number to call, 706-863-5800. If you have a question about your car, truck, or SUV, you give us a call, and we will be able to answer that question. Joe, we were talking about different things. The gentleman was mentioning spark plugs, one blowing out in many times. If you planning to change your spark plugs, and that's one of the things that keeps that from happening, because you're actually changing them, and then you're making sure that the new ones are tight when you put them back in. But sometimes they can be difficult to get out of there. So because of that, I recommend PB Blaster. You can, when you start to change those spark plugs, you can spray down in the hole real good. And PB Blaster, what's that term that they use where it crawls up the threads?
Permeates?
No, there's a different word for that. No, there's a word for it to where they. I'll find out.
Well, give me the can. I'll read it. Here we go.
I don't.
Let's
know
see. It's on there. I'm sure it's got to be.
But anyway, when you put the PB Blaster on there, it will actually penetrate into the threads, and it'll make it to where when you break it loose, you won't take a chance on tearing up your threads as you remove that. So, you got it?
No, I don't.
You don't have it yet.
I don't have
okay, I will find out what term they use. But I will tell you that it's kind of amazing. You can take a rusty bolt. I've actually seen this on videos. You take a rusty bolt
from the A&D Carpets.
You take a rusty bolt and you can spray a little bit of the PB Blaster on there, and it'll actually climb up the threads. Yeah, it's kind of amazing to watch it. I like that. Okay, so that's a great thing. Now, if you have a question about your car, truck, or SUV, you give us a call, number 800-224-9090, and we are talking about different problems that people have. And one of the things that I have seen, one question that I get from time to time is somebody says their car sounds a little different when they're spinning it over. It don't have that same fast sound that it had. And one person asked me that recently, and they said, well, Aaron, it's doing that, and my battery's only 4 years old. So what do you think I should do about it?
You know, if you got 4 years out of a battery and you was spinning it over at all, you did very, very good, I would say.
Yeah.
We don't usually see batteries that live that long, honestly, anymore.
Every now and then I see them, but one thing I always tell people, we don't even load test them when they're over 4 years old, because what we worried about is that may push it over the edge, and a person comes in and says, check my battery, and then they can't crank their car to drive it home. If one's 4 years old, I recommend just going ahead and replacing it. I didn't forgot what movie that was in. Oh, Money Pit. Money Pit, the guy was talking about their plumbing, and he said he looked at it years back. He said, "You think it gets better with age?" And that battery's going to be the same way. You're 4 years old. It's not going to be better when it hits 5 years old.
It is not.
So, 4 years old, go ahead and get you a battery, and you very well could save circumstances of being stranded, and you could also save other parts, like the alternator tends
Working
to last
overtime.
longer with a good battery. And also you'll save from having to jump the car off, which causes voltage spikes, just all the way around. If you have a battery that's getting some age on it, I'd recommend replacing. The battery's like a shock absorber for the whole electrical system. So if you go ahead and have that battery replaced, it just makes everything last a lot longer. Okay, another item, wiper blades. Person says, my wiper blades look good, and they seem to be cleaning reasonably well, but they're making kind of like a scrubbing noise. What do you think?
A clean windshield is one of the things that helps with wiper blade life. Getting a good clean surface on your windshield. Any dirt or anything like that that's on there can make it do that. Also, you can just take the wiper blades down and just simply take a cloth with a little damp cloth and wipe the actual blade surface down, because any debris is just going to cause it to squeak or bump around the windshield.
But also sometimes the rubber just gets hard.
It does.
I look at it like a squeegee. Sometimes you got a squeegee that's pushing the water reasonably well, but it's scrubbing when it goes, and it's the rubber's done lost its softness. And wiper blades can do the same thing. The big thing to remember when it gets like that, it can scratch the windshield also.
Absolutely.
So if you got windshields making that, now we got a full house on callers, but we got a problem.
We're on E.
Yeah, I looked over it. Yeah, the gas gauge is just scrubbing the bottom there, right on E. So we do need to pull over for right now. And even though we filled up at $3.50 a gallon, we're still on E. So we'll fill up the tank and be ready for next week. And I want to say thank you, Joe, for joining the show. Enjoyed you being here. A lot of fun.
Enjoyed it. Thank you for having me.
Great help answering a lot of really good questions. And I want to thank everyone that called into the CNC Auto Show. And we will be back on the road in no time, so be ready. Talk to you soon.